I'll now take the precedent of the Performance and Review Scrutiny Forum by roll call. Councillor Alec Allison is present. Councillor Robert Brown?
Yes, I'm present.
Councillor Maureen Chalmers is present. Councillor Jerry Convery?
Yes, Stuart.
Thank you. And the following members are also present. Councillors Peter Craig, Maureen Devlin, Joe Fagan, Katie Loudon, John Ross and Jared Work. I've also taken a note of the officers present, and I will pass you back to the Chair for today's business. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stuart. We'll start with item 1, declaration of interest. Do we have any? Don't see any hands raised, so we'll move on to minutes of the previous meeting. In pages 3 to 6, does any colleague have any comments or questions of the minutes? Again, I don't. Oops, Tom.
Thanks, Chair. It was just to point out that you'll see item 3 in the minutes of the last meeting of the forum. There was a commitment to bring some work to you that was being undertaken by the Improvement Service, some analysis of our LGBF. Unfortunately, we didn't receive the results of that work in time to bring a report to this meeting, so if the forum's content, we'll bring it to a future meeting. I would note, though, that the work that's been undertaken by the Improvement Service is looking very useful, and we are using it as we go forward with the development of the next Council Plan Connect.
Thanks very much, Tom. Is that agreeable to colleagues that we do that? Okay, thanks, Tom. We'll keep that in mind. Can we then go on to item 3, which is the Council Plan Connect, 2017 to 22 Q2 progress report? And I would ask Tom to give us a report on that, please.
Thank you. This is the latest progress report in terms of the Council Plan, and in this case it covers up to Q2 of 21-22, so that's 1st of April through 30 September of 21. Now, as members know, these progress reports have been a key part of our performance reporting arrangements since 2007, and we bring a version of this to you twice a year, end of Q2 and end of Q4. This is the latest one of those. Now, I'm going to take you straight into what you regard as the meat of the report, I guess, at 4.3, and that's in page 8 of your papers for today. And there you'll see that a total of 264 performance measures have been identified across all of our resource plans for 21-22. And of those, 108 were nominated as key strategic measures that should be put up for reporting progress against Connect itself. So progress to date against all those measures is, as usual, included in the Appendix 1. But as always, we provide a kind of summary table for you, and it's there at 4.5. And you'll see there that of the 108 measures, 4 were showing at blue, which is our completed notification, 81 at green, i.e. progressing as schedule, 4 at amber, some minor slippage, and none showing at red on this occasion. So the reporting goes on, and from 4.6 we break down those results across the 4 council priorities, and we've also included under each of those some of the achievements that have been put up by our services for highlighting. Now, I won't, as usual, go into those in great detail. We don't like blowing our own trumpets, as you know, but I would just say that the 4 ambers are showing for you on page 9 of your report. We go on then to 4.7. You get a similar breakdown at that point on a kind of 5th priority, as you might want to think about it, which is basically our way of monitoring delivery of the plan and the constant search for best value. And then finally at 4.8, there's a usual update we provide in terms of measures that were to be reported later at our last report, in this case Q4 2021, but there's nothing significant to bring to your attention in that paragraph this time round. So I'll just take you to the recommendations, which are in essence to note the contents of the report, that being the measures progress in Appendix 1, the achievements, and the additional scrutiny item at 4.8. I'm happy to take any questions, but as usual, there are colleagues who are taking part in the meeting who may be better placed to do so.
Thanks very much for that report, Tom. And I have no problem with you blowing your own trumpet as far as achievements by this council is concerned. So feel free to do that at any time. I see that colleagues already have their hands up. Maureen?
Thanks, John. It's just, and it's probably just something I should know really, but on 4.6.3 on the Children's Reporter reports, it's basically saying we're achieving nearly 90%. Does that mean that our 75% target's probably too low, or is it too low? Is that a statutory target? And on a similar question on page 2, appendix 1, around 90% of drug and alcohol clients started treatment psychological intervention within 3 weeks. Again, are we being challenging enough to ourselves here? Is this something that we could increase the target on? Thanks.
Thanks, Maureen.
If Liam Purdy's on the call, can I invite him to answer that one?
Yeah,
Liam.
Tom, thanks. Councillor, the performance target for this reports for SCRAT is a national target that's set, and 75% is the national measure. If we were to change that measure, then we wouldn't be comparing ourselves with other local authorities with that. So even though we're doing really well to achieve above the measure, it is a national target that's set, so I would probably resist changing that. And the target is the exact same. That's a national key performance indicator. So again, even though we're exceeding the target, again, I think we should celebrate that we're exceeding the target.
Yeah.
There might be times when we're under that, and that's when we need to look at remedial action. But again, if we were to change either of those two targets, then we wouldn't be comparing ourselves with a like for like with the national figures that then came out. So
that's useful.
I'd not to do that.
Thanks, Liam. That's really useful.
Thanks to both of you. Robert?
Yes, a couple of things, if I may. The recycling stuff on page 18, I think it is, talks about a figure of 42% and below the target of 50%. Now, manifestly, we've kind of stuck at that sort of figure for a bit. And the big issue, I think, that remains is the recycling facilities and tenemental properties. I've had some engagement with this over a period to see what's happening, but do we have any kind of deadline for moving forward to the next stage? I'm aware that it's full of all sorts of complications, in terms of space and how you get it organised and contamination, different things like that. But if we're going to move forward on the recycling, that would be the big thing. Is there a time limit on or programme for anything of that sort yet?
Through you, Chair, you'll see from the narrative that's in the appendix, Councillor Brown, that recycling is getting better, even if it is below target at the moment. But I think Al McKinnon may be on the call and able to respond better than me.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, Robert, we are looking at trying to roll some stuff out in the tenemental properties, looking at changing the mix of bins and what we collect in bins to see whether that improves it. We'll get a lot of contamination in the communal bins, and we're thinking about changing what we ask to put in the bins, and we hope that will improve the recycling rate. So we're away looking just now at how we would do that PR-wise, how we would look at putting different stickers in bins, and we would look to try and promote that before we rolled it out, but very much a focus on tenemental properties. And what I would say, that isn't unique to South Lanarkshire. That's the most challenging issue across the whole of Scotland.
Yeah, no, I accept there's big challenges on that one, but I was anxious, obviously, to see some progress on it. Can I ask two other things, if I may? Stewartfield Way, further down, we were promised a while back a presentation, and I know for various reasons that's kind of taken a bit longer. Is there is that going to happen in the near future, or is that something that's delayed a bit? And then finally, on the sort of school attendance figures, which are at page 18. It seems odd that the school attendance figures for 2019, 20 and 2021 are pretty much the same as what they were in the previous year. Notwithstanding COVID, you would have expected to have seen quite a substantial dip, would you not, even at the present time? Is there some background to that? Am I missing something there?
Sorry, Rob, I don't have an update on the Stewartfield Way, but I'll get that for you and I can come back to you as far as our presentation is concerned.
That's great, thank you.
And on your question.
Through you, Chair, I think Stuart Nicholson may be on the call.
Yeah, I saw Stuart earlier. Stuart?
Good morning. Yeah, the school attendance figures, essentially it's in terms of the way that they're calculated and reported. What I can do is go back and get a breakdown of the codes to give a more substantial update on it. What we are doing is looking at the COVID-related absences separately to that, but there were significant periods of time. So, for example, during the lockdown periods, where attendance would be recorded in terms of participation rather than physical attendance at school. But we can go back and have a closer look and get you a breakdown of what those codes actually mean.
Yeah, if I may say so, there's two things I think I would myself want to see out of that. One is, if you like, how serious the continuing impact of COVID is on children being at school. And secondly, if there's any kind of longer term falling away because of habit or whatever that's emerged out of COVID, which we need to sort of have a look at. School attendance rates were doing quite well, if I recall correctly, before. And I think we're anxious to see that wouldn't fall off because of incidental side products of all the implications of COVID.
Yeah, we would absolutely agree with that. In terms of the continuing impact, obviously the impact of Omicron and the changes to the self-isolation rules and restrictions had a significant impact at that time, which is obviously prior to this reporting period. So we'll be happy to bring updated figures to you and let you have a look at that. In terms of the ongoing impact, we recognise the impact on young people's, I suppose, if you like, habits in terms of attending school, the impact on relationships, interactions and so on. And we're very mindful of that in terms of the work that's been done to support recovery.
I'm sure that's something that will be of interest to the Education Department going forward, once we have a chance to look at all of that. Thanks very much, both of you. Councillor Craig, Peter.
Thanks, Chair. I've lost my place a wee bit. The top of page 9, probably the easiest way to describe it. It's about the achievements in the town centre at Larkhall. I've got a couple of questions about that. One is that the High Street in Larkhall is, in relative terms, very busy compared to other high streets around South Lanarkshire and Scotland. So what's the council's opinion on why that is? And also, we'll start with that. Yeah, kind of lost my place.
John, I'll come in for that, Chair, if you're okay.
Yes, please, Alistair.
Hi, Peter. No, I agree with you. I think Larkhall is doing very well. We do see very low vacancy rates on the main street. I think we've also got a good mix of different shops and retails and other businesses, well, a lot of independent ones. And we are seeing that Larkhall's performance is a bit stronger than a lot of other towns in South Lanarkshire, but as you also say, also a lot stronger than other town centres across Scotland. And that is actually on top of the fact that Asda, recently opened a store at the edge of the town. And I think we've seen that shoppers have remained loyal to the main street. And I think that's the difference that we've seen there. And I think that goes against what we're seeing in some of our other own towns and across Scotland as well. As far as how we think we can go forward, I think we're seeing it's challenging. People are changing the way they access the town centres. And I think this will be becoming especially challenging as we come out of COVID, and people's behaviours change as well. Don't know if that answers your question, Peter.
So, thanks, Al. Going on from there, what are you looking to do for the other town centres? What can you learn from this that you can implement in other town centres round about in South Lanarkshire? Yeah,
again, I think each town centre's got its own challenges, so I think we need to try and, as we are doing a lot of surveys and consultation with local residents about what they see as the challenges, what they would like to see. And I think we've got about 8 or 9 different interventions or engagements going on across our towns in South Lanarkshire, things like Biggar, Blantyre, Carluke. And the latest development and strategy action plan was actually presented to the Community and Enterprise Committee last month for Blantyre, and that's now out for consultation. So I think it's very much looking at, getting feedback from the residents about what they see the challenges and what improvements we can make, and then try to come up with action plans to try and take that going forward. And I think, as you said, Larkhall, we're in a positive position, but that doesn't stop us continually looking at that town centre to maintain that position and also try and replicate it across our other areas in South Lanarkshire.
Well, thanks, Al.
Thanks, Al. I think one of the things I've recognised is when you go through places like Larkhall, where you have a main street where people can park and get easy access to the shops, and very much the same when you go through Blantyre. It seems to be much busier than those areas where you've got to come off the main drag and try to get into a town centre. That's only one observation that I've picked up. But thanks very much for the comments. Can I go on to Katie?
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to ask around the response repair stat, which is on page 2 of the appendix. And I was just wondering if it was a sort of similar context or explanation to Maureen's question. So I'm just going to steal that format. So the target that we've got sitting here for percentage of response repairs completed in time is sitting at 90 on the report, but then over the last couple of years, you can see that what's actually happened has been a great deal higher. We've got sort of 97, 96, 98. So I just wondered why that target was set at the 90% level when we've clearly been overshooting it by quite a margin, and to ask why that's not been bumped up. Would 95 or something be more appropriate there? Thanks.
Thanks, Katie. Somebody from Housing?
Yes. Chair Jonathan Reid's present.
Yeah.
Hi, Chair, and thanks, Councillor, for the question on that. Yeah, absolutely right, and similar to Councillor Chalmers and Liam's exchange earlier. Statutory target, national target that we have to report to the Scottish Housing Regulator on an annual basis. We are considering, you're absolutely right, performance has been much better over the last few years than 90%, so we are considering doing our own internal target, which will probably go through the resource plan to kind of better reflect performance, but we'll monitor that for the moment. But yeah, it's a 90% statutory target.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's very good. I see Alec. Alec has his hand up. Alec.
Yeah, John. Both things I was wanting to raise. I don't know whether I'm just feeling grumpy today, but when you've no reds, that should obviously always be a very positive thing. But it also seems very strange to me just now that when we're going through COVID, many different things have had to be put into abeyance, etc. Yet that hasn't shown up in this report. And that does seem very strange to me. Are we just ignoring the programmes that have had to be put in abeyance or scaled back because of COVID? Secondly, it was on Robert's point again. It's not just in the tenements where we don't have a full recycling service. Out in the rural areas, there are many areas out there that do not get a full recycling service. For instance, myself, I only have black bins. Is there anything being done to extend the recycling opportunities to all households, not just the high-rise where there's bin storage problems? We'd also like to see in there, where there is an amber and no reds today, what action is being taken to remedy whatever's wrong. Most of the ones I see in there is a reason for why it is not sitting in green. I think we also need to know what is going to be done to take that, to improve that situation. Not just saying it's improving, but how we're going to do it. Another thing I've picked up, there's a number of them in there saying that they're going to report by December 21. Well, that's a month ago. Surely we can have it more up to date than that, because that sounds as if this report is already a couple of months out of date.
Thanks, Alec. I hope you're not insinuating that we're just reporting on things we think we've got a good response on, eh? You know, it's definitely a Monday morning feeling that.
You might well think that. I couldn't.
I'm sure our officers would not go down that road. Can I have a response to Alec's questions, please?
Okay, if I come in, Chair.
Yeah.
There's quite a few questions there, Councillor Allison. I'll try and remember them all. I'll maybe go backwards slightly. A lot of the measures that we are measuring are, of course, set down nationally. There's different requirements, you know, so a lot of this is outside of our control, what we're measuring. There are some added things that we put in there ourselves, the resources put in, because they reflect local circumstances, but in many ways it's dictated to us, some ways by regulators, improvement services, etc., through LGBF, etc. In terms of COVID, we do, you'll see at 3.3 in the report, we do reflect the fact that COVID's had an impact on services. We have, in previous reports, this one perhaps flagged up even stronger in terms of the appendices, where there have been, you know, maybe more ambers. But I think it's in some ways it's a testimony to the way services are operating that we've been able to see only 4 ambers in this report, I would say. What else did you ask about? In terms of mitigation, there's passing reference to the mitigation in this appendix, but where ambers and certainly where reds flag up in resource plan reporting, there are significant amount of narrative given to mitigation efforts, management efforts to bring things back into line, and that's where we tend to see that kind of level of scrutiny is at the resource committee level. Although there's a paper following this one to this forum which highlights all ambers and reds across all the resource plans, and we bring that again to this committee on a regular basis. Was there anything else, Councillor? Oh, you had a question on recycling as well in the rural areas, Councillor Allison. Yeah. Could I invite, through you, Chair, Al McKinnon, to respond to that one?
Yes, certainly. Al.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, Alec, we'd started an exercise just before COVID about looking at our routes in the Clydesdale area to see whether we could get any more properties on the recycling routes. We've since purchased an in-cab system that allows us to better track where we've got bins and how we would increase the routes. That was obviously put on hold very much because of COVID and the focus on trying to continue the services we've got. But we do have an action to go away and see whether we can expand what we collect in the Clydesdale area through our existing resources. But there's also a discussion going on nationally about potentially a requirement to lift food waste from all properties. Right now, that isn't a requirement for us. So again, we're waiting to see the outcome of that. But that would maybe allow us, if there's any extra funding comes to the council, to expand food collection out into the rural areas. So we're very much aware that we don't have the same recycling services across the whole of the council, and we are trying to see whether we can expand that given the resources we currently have.
You okay with that, Alec?
Yeah, and I like to. What was the question? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Councillor Alton, you did make the point about the potential lag in terms of reporting. We're in a cycle really with this. I mean, this is the Q2 report. It takes us up to that period of 30 September. We do endeavour to keep our information more up to date than that, and the information in the appendix for this will take us up to about year end. But the report itself is strictly supposed to cover Q2, and that's why there's an inevitable lag, I'm afraid, in terms of the way it certainly appears to you.
Okay, Alec. Okay.
Yeah, now I've read this headline. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It does help if you read the headline. I'm not saying any more. I don't see any other hands raised, so I'm going to move the recommendations.
Agreed.
Any other? Are we agreed on the recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thanks very much. We'll move on to item 4, which is improved red and amber results Q2. And Neil, if you can give us a report on this, please.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So this is the red and amber results report for Q2 21-22. So it covers the same period as the Connect report that we've just been considering. And as Tom has just said, this is a regular report that we bring to the forum. It comes once a year. And its purpose really is to allow us to apply greater scrutiny to red and amber measures, because it pulls together any reds or ambers that appear in the improved system, no matter where they are. So the previous report provided information on 4 ambers because they were in Connect, but this report has 12 ambers. So those 4 ambers are here as well, but they're joined by 8 others which appear in resource plans. That sounds complicated, but it isn't really. The purpose essentially is to pull together the reds and ambers from across the resource plans so you can have a look at them all together. So essentially, the report gives you a little bit of information about the reds and ambers. So we don't have any reds reported across the resource plans, but as I said, there are 12 ambers altogether. So they're shown there in section 4 of the covering report. And at table 1, you can see how the reds and ambers have panned out over the last few years, but there's also a breakdown by resource. So you can see the final column of that table shows you the total for 21-22, and you can see that they're fairly well spread across the resources, and there are 12 in total. The numbers have been reducing over the last few years, but largely that's a reflection of the fact, as you will be aware, we've been cutting down the number of measures in total that we report in order to focus more completely on the ones that matter. So there's been an inevitable reduction in the number of reds and ambers reported altogether. Table 2 in the report gives you a little bit of a breakdown in terms of how these ambers are spread across the priorities in the council plan. So they're listed there. And essentially, there's not much else to say in this report, because the detail is in the appendix, as in the Connect report. So the detail of what those amber measures are and what action has been taken is contained in the appendix to the report. So I'll just take you to the recommendations, which are to note the contents, and also to note any remedial action or mitigation which is noted against those amber measures. And that hopefully picks up on the point that was made earlier, that we want to see what mitigations are being put in place. So that's the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Neil. I hope Alex not too disappointed that there's no any reds, but hey ho, maybe next report, Alec. I don't see any colleague with their hand up for any questions or comments. Nope. So I'm going to move the recommendations.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5, which is South Ayrshire Council Best Value Assurance Report. Tom, can you give us a report on this, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Members I think are very familiar with this now. We've been bringing reports on other councils' best value assurance reports to you now since 2019. And we, as I say, as a 3.3, the intention has always been to provide a bit of context for our own BVAR, which took place in 2018, but also gives members a chance to have a look and see what's happening elsewhere, and perhaps pick up any noteworthy best value developments that are happening elsewhere. So, as the Chair just said, in this case we have South Ayrshire Council's report. I would just point out there has been another council BVAR reported since your last forum. That was Falkirk, but it wasn't published in time for us really to bring the report to you. So it's something to look forward to for the next forum. In terms of South Ayrshire, the key messages and recommendations are outlined for you as section 4, that's page 53 of your papers. And I would say it's a pretty positive report overall. You'll see some key words jumping out at you there, like council has a clear vision, has responded well to COVID-19, has reported improved performance, says there is good scrutiny by members. Overall, as I say, positive one, effective financial management arrangements in place. There are one or two sort of criticisms in there, as notes that members of the public have been unable, in this case, to view that council's meetings because of the pandemic. And where there is any criticism, it tends to be picked up, as you'd expect, in the recommendations for improvement, which are at 4.2, page 55 in your papers. And you'll see there, just to pick out some of them, it says South Ayrshire needs to pick up the pace of improvement in some key aspects of best value. It recommends that they prepare more long-term financial plans. There's a point made about workforce planning and the need to improve and embed it in the overall planning for the council, and some improvements required in terms of performance reporting. But those quibbles aside, as I say, it's a reasonably positive outcome, I think, for the council. And in this case, I'm just asking to note the contents of this report.
Thanks very much, Tom. I'm not going to make any comment on the report. Does any other colleague have anything to say or any comments to make? Nope. Can we agree to note the report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thanks very much. There'll be no other business. Can I take this opportunity? This will be the last meeting of the forum before the coming local elections in May. So can I take this opportunity to thank Stuart for all the work he's done and keeping me right during these meetings, and to Tom and his crew and all the other officers for the way they've handled the operation during this administration. Thank them very much in all the departments, and hopefully we'll see some of the councillors back after the May elections. Okay, and thanks very much for taking the time and your presence today. Many thanks.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.